that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
We can make our beloved country the source of all the dreams and the opportunities that she was missing.
Welcome to the American Idiots Podcast, the show where we take the most divisive headlines and put them to the debate with our diverse group of hosts. Join us as we leave no story uncovered and spare no politician. What's up, everybody? Welcome into the American Idiots Podcast. I am Money Mike, and I am so glad to have you guys in here with us tonight. Of course, if you are listening to us, go ahead and throw us a like and leave us a 5-star review on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening from. If you're watching us on Facebook, go ahead and like the page and share it for us if you would. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, like or subscribe to the page, hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever we do update, which is, of course, every Monday at 7:30. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bring in the man, the Manny Hispani. Manny Hispani, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
Hey, how about that intro, though? I'm just saying.
The what?
How about that intro, though? I'm just saying.
I'm hyped, man. Going back to the old music, yes, I'm loving it. Last week when I heard it, I was like, yes, back to the original.
Right.
I did see that we got flagged, though, for the copyright thing.
Man, it happens. It's always fun. They always release them, like, right after, too. It's hilarious. Right. It happens, though. Number one, of course, Mother's Day yesterday. I want to wish everybody a very happy Mother's Day. I got to go see my grandma, called my mama, all that good stuff. Haley, the wife, got to spend some time with her mama at church yesterday, so that's always good. Well, how was your guys' Mother's Day, Manny?
Pretty good. Went out to eat, just kept it pretty simple.
Nice. Nice. Had a heck of a message in church yesterday, too, by the way. Shout out to that church here in Sherwood. Heck of a message. Almost, not going to lie, 3 services. In each service, I knew it was coming. In each service, towards the end, our senior pastor's wife was speaking, and she may or may not have been cutting some onions at the end there. I'm just saying. maybe a few tears.
I've started doing security there at our church, so I haven't really got to hear any of the past sermons.
Okay, nice. You ain't playing the drums.
I couldn't tell you if Jesus is coming back or not. So,
well, I mean, if we want to be technical, none of us can tell you when Jesus is coming back.
Right.
Hey, let's go ahead and get on into it, Manny. We got a couple longer videos today, and the biggest story probably dominating headlines, besides, of course, a corrections officer who helped her boyfriend escape. Probably the second biggest story is the Supreme Court and a dissenting or a opinion that I guess was written in advance of the potential of the Supreme Court hearing Roe v. Wade all over again. And this opinion apparently said that they wanted to overturn it. And, yeah, a lot of people are pissed off. We have a story here from MSNBC.
We're back with our expert panel to discuss SCOTUS possibly overturning Roe versus Wade. Neil, you took issue with something I said in the last block. What was it?
So you had said this is the first time the Supreme Court, if this draft opinion becomes law, taken away a right. And unfortunately, the court has taken away rights before. Take, for example, the Voting Rights Act, which I defended successfully in 2009, only to have the Supreme Court in 2013 rip it away and say the Voting Rights Act was unconstitutional in the Shelby County case. And here's why this is so significant for this debate. The Alito draft says we should return the issue to the people, to the voters. This is a Republican Party that's bent on trying to take the vote away from people time and again. And you can't talk the language of democracy on Monday and then the other 6 days of the week try and rip it away from the American people or invade the Capitol in order to do so. I mean, it's just not a plausible argument in today's society.
You know, Professor Greer and Reverend Sharpton, we got to talk about Justice Clarence Thomas and a comment that he made. We're going to put it up on the screen where he said, as a society, we are becoming addicted to wanting particular outcomes, not living with the outcomes we don't like, Thomas said. We can't be an institution that can be bullied into giving you just the outcomes you want. The events from earlier this week are a symptom of that. Professor Greer, I read that. All I could think was, child, please, are you serious? Are you serious?
Yeah. I read and reread that, Jonathan, several times, largely because Clarence Thomas is responsible for aiding and abetting the erosion of our institutions and our democracy, to say nothing of his wife. And so the fact that he would actually write that lets us know that he is so detached and so committed to his right-wing white nationalist philosophy of dismantling American democracy on a whole host of levels. And as you and Neil have pointed out, it started with voting rights a few years ago. It is right now we're in the moment with women and Roe v. Wade, but we know that it'll extend to not just gun control, but LGBTQ plus rights and contraception and so many other things. And we cannot count on Clarence Thomas to have a clear eye on any of these matters. We know that he is really committed to taking rights away, not just from African Americans, but the larger American public writ large.
Mm-hmm. And Rev, I'd love to get your insight on what Justice Thomas said there.
Well, first of all, I think he's making it clear that what Judge Alito said is exactly what he and others are willing to support. Secondly, if he's talking about people not liking and being addicted to outcomes, he ought to tell his wife that about the 2020 election, because she was part of the election protest, and she was part of January 6th. That was trying to act like that election didn't happen. But thirdly, I think that what is very telling is he's not arguing about the constitutionality or the rightness of whatever decision they're coming with. He is talking about people's popular view or get or go along with it or get used to it or get over it. He's not talking law, which is the politicization of the Supreme Court. And that is why people are losing a lot of faith in the court, because he is actually saying, I'm not arguing law, I'm arguing my view, and you get over it if you don't like my view. And I think that that is dangerous, and that is something that we need to deal with.
And Professor Greer, you guys were succinct in your responses, so we have a little bit of time left. But Professor Greer, one of the things that leapt out at me in that leaked draft opinion from Justice Alito is a whole thing in there about the court shouldn't be concerned about reputational damage if they were to overturn Roe versus Wade. To my mind, what Justice Alito is doing there, speaking of bullying, is trying to bully the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Or I'd love your view on that.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who has the honor and the privilege of speaking to the future minds of the American public, you know, every week as a college professor, you know, I see the fact that they have no faith or very little faith in the Supreme Court as an institution. And as I try and teach them about, you know, the separation of powers, as we walk through Federalist 51 and think about checks and balances, they are absolutely disgusted to think about Supreme Court justices as hyper-partisan beings. And so in this particular moment, when we know that it is so important for us to pay attention to who our senators are, because a president is the person who nominates a justice, and the Senate are those individuals who confirm said justice. So I'm helping them understand the interconnectedness and how we can actually help influence the future of the court somewhere down the line. But I think that, the missed opportunity for Barack Obama to put someone else in the court, thanks to Mitch McConnell, with the failure of Merrick Garland being put on the court, the failure of Ruth Bader Ginsburg stepping down, the fact that Donald Trump was able to put in several justices, and we know that they lied under oath about how they feel about Roe v. Wade. And so we're seeing this time and time again. And I think young people, unfortunately, are getting so disgusted with the hyperpartisanship, especially the white nationalist hyperpartisanship of the Supreme Court. It's actually turning them off, and it's our job to help usher them and put them in the center of their own democracy.
And Neil, we're out of time, but I want to give you an opportunity to give us some final thoughts on the legal stuff that's presented by this Alito opinion. What should we be paying attention to as we wind our way to the end of the court's term?
It's not just the bottom line that Roe versus Wade, it's overruled. It's how they got there. The Alito draft has this kind of ridiculous historical test, which will turn back the clock and threaten everything from gay marriage to contraception laws to possibly even Brown versus Board of Education will probably flunk their test. And this is the result of a radical move by Mitch McConnell and others who monkeyed with the court. And the fruits of that are now, unfortunately, starting to be seen by the American people.
Okay, I can already tell I'm going to need a stiff drink by the end of this show with as many MSNBC clips as what we have. How are we connecting Roe v. Wade and Brown versus the Board of Education?
As soon as he started going off on those other things that this is going to affect, I was like, please.
Like, I can understand Roe v. Wade contraception laws, can understand that correlation, how they can affect one another. And full disclosure, I'm not for the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I'm for amending Roe v. Wade. I do think that Roe v. Wade has opened up the ability for people to not necessarily I can't think of the words. Not necessarily do something without a effect, but without a consequence. Thank you. Without a consequence. I do think that is something that we are looking at. Is a lot of people are arguing that they should have the ability to, in this case, engage in sexual intercourse without the possible consequence of conceiving a child. Now, if there's a medical need, incest, rape, all of that, absolutely, I completely understand the situation. I know me and you disagree on that, but I completely understand that situation. However, again, if you're sitting here telling me that, hey, I just had sex on Tuesday and I should be able to go get an abortion just because I'm a fucking woman and I fucking run my body, I'm sorry. Again, actions have consequences. We do have a comment here from Sketchy Peasant, who we haven't heard from in a while. Sketch says, aren't Republicans for limited government? They say don't tread on me. Now they are treading on women's rights and their choices they have over their body. 59 to 70% of Americans support abortion. Sketch, again, I'm not saying that abortion is necessarily wrong in certain instances, and I'm not for overturning Roe v. Wade. What I am for is for you to have a legitimate reason for this. I do not accept that people should be able to say, hey, I fucking had sex, I don't want a kid. And I apologize for the language, but I'm fired up about this. This is absolutely asinine. So let's start off first with overturning Roe v. Wade, and then we can get into the fucking craziness that was that clip. Manny?
Oh, I get to talk now?
You get to talk now.
I would like to know where the statistics came from on that.
Mm-hmm.
The comment. Because anytime that you take a poll and ask 100 people a question, your numbers are going to be skewed because depending on where you ask, where those 100 people came from, your poll is going to be tainted. So I don't like how people will pull numbers out like that when it's based on a poll of, $300 or $400, or sorry, 300 or 400 people.
Yeah, I was about to say your audio kind of dropped, I think, because your phone's ringing. There we go.
Right. It was the comic book store. I'm an avid comic book reader. These came in over the weekend. Wolverine, Marauders, Alien, the Alien series.
Nice.
But yeah, they've been sending me a comic book since they've gone completely online. He closed his brick and mortar store, and they just send me things from the pools that I already had open. And he'll send me stuff that he thinks I might like. One of those titles are X-Men Legends, which are basically the books from the 70s and 80s and 90s. Well, I've already got those, so I don't need a new copy of them just because they put a different cover on it. They're not even putting different covers on it. All they did was change it from X-Men to X-Men, or Uncanny X-Men to X-Men Legends. So it's like, yeah, I'm not going to pay another $5 per issue for books I've already got.
Right.
Anyway,
True.
sorry. Yeah, when you take such a small percentage of people and then try to say in a whole 70% of all Americans, well, you only asked 300-400 people, so you can't equate that, because depending on where, if you ask 400 people in California, they're going to have a much different answer than if you ask 400 people from Texas.
Right, exactly.
So whenever you start throwing stats out like that and you're not really sure where they got the numbers, you can't always trust those numbers.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with that. Secondly, if I'm not mistaken, and anybody out there, please correct me if I'm wrong. I learn from mistakes. If I'm not mistaken, though, if there were medical issues to either the baby or the mother, if there were instances of rape and incest, the abortion was usually permitted.
I am not sure, because I don't think I've ever lived in a era. I'd have to look at Roe v. Wade. I believe was before my time. I believe, though, that the argument is, I believe so. I do think that Roe v. Wade was. I do believe that Roe v. Wade allowed you easier access to those medical procedures and the facilities that can do those medical procedures. Sketch says these are not small polls; these are very large polls. Obviously, geographical locations will vary. The majority of Americans support a woman's right for abortion, not the other way. Again, Sketch, I don't think that we're arguing that it could be. We said that it could be a small poll. What we're saying is give us the data so that we can see it. And again, correct us if we're wrong. I love being corrected because I won't know unless you correct me. I don't continue believing something incorrect.
Right. So, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that was the case, especially with the medical stuff, terminating a unborn child if it was bringing detriment to either the mother or the child, they would usually terminate.
Okay.
So, I mean, that was, and that's at birth sometimes. So it's really a gray area there. As far as the overturning of Roe versus Wade, like I wasn't in an era where it was illegal to have an abortion. And while everybody wants to scream about what about the woman's rights, my body, my choice type thing, what about the unborn child? That is still a person. That is still a body. That is still a living creature with all five senses. Well, I shouldn't say that because some don't have all five senses. But you know, just because it exists doesn't make it a curse.
True.
So to sentence it to death for no reason other than the mother doesn't want it.
Yeah.
It's very wrong in my opinion.
Absolutely.
It's not about me trying to take a woman's rights. It's about thinking of more than just that one person, because that decision does affect more than just that one person. There's a father potentially that might have wanted the child. There is a child that I'm sure if, they were able to tell what they wanted, they would not choose death.
Sketch says God says life begins at first breath in Genesis. Interesting. I mean, touche.
Well, if you believe in the Bible, I mean, you can quote the Bible. What about those that don't? Not everybody is a Bible believing.
Again, Sketch, I'm just saying that I think it's wrong in the instances where there isn't a legitimate medical need. And actually, I'm surprised because I think Manny here, unless I'm mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, Manny is honestly agreeing with me in most cases. If there is a legitimate medical reason, go ahead. That's right. Absolutely 100% no question for me. You have to do that. But if there is no legitimate medical reason, if you're saying, hey, I just got knocked up, fuck, what am I going to do? Well, then guess what? I'm sorry. There are consequences for your actions, and us removing the consequences for one's actions is actually a big problem in today's society.
I partied hard last month and slept with 5 guys, and now I'm pregnant. Don't even know who the father is, so I'm going to go get an abortion.
Yeah, like, what the fuck, dude? I'm sorry, you made that choice. That's part of being an adult. I don't want to fucking pay bills, but guess what? I know the consequence of me not paying bills is me losing my vehicle, me losing my house, there are consequences to your actions as an adult. You made that adult.
You're not getting to eat food. Looking at your body type, man, you can't go without eating food.
That's true. But, that video actually brought up me a whole new thing for me to want to talk about in this. And that's the fact that they actually attacked Clarence Thomas for an opinion I honestly hold myself. The court should not rule based upon public opinion. The court should rule based upon the Constitution. The court isn't there to make you happy. The court is there to uphold the law of the land. And this is again another glaring issue, because the court says that they interpret the Constitution in a certain way. They say that it is white nationalism. It is hyperpartisanism, or whatever the word is. Words are difficult. But how? How can you say that? I remember 22 years ago when Gore v. Bush was decided, Al Gore said, we are not going to attack the Supreme Court. They are above reproach. What happened to the Supreme Court being above reproach? Because a couple justices got sat on the bench that you don't like? Guess what? If they're not doing their job, then it will be found out. But they are doing their job. Their job is, again, not to make you happy, but to interpret the Constitution and apply the rule of the land.
And that nowhere in becoming a justice of the Supreme Court are you expected to forego your opinions.
Exactly.
You can still have your opinions. You can still voice your opinions, as long as you're not using your opinions to go against the Constitution. There shouldn't be an issue.
Right. If you're not ruling based upon your opinion and you're ruling based upon the Constitution of the United States of America, then you're doing your job as a Supreme Court justice. And honestly, MSNBC should be ashamed of themselves. Number 2, where the hell did this come up all of a sudden that both Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett lied under oath? This is news to me. Have you heard that before this?
I hadn't heard anything about that. And if they lied under oath, they sure aren't being prosecuted. I mean, nobody's going after them except for MSNBC bringing it up.
Right. Again, guess what? At the end of the day, oh my goodness, I'm mind blown by the amount of stupid in that clip. And Reverend Jackson should be ashamed of the way he was acting up there. Bro, you're a freaking reverend. Well, I guess technically now you can really only call Al Sharpton. You can really only call Al Sharpton a reverend in title alone, because I don't believe he actually preaches anywhere. He's more of a political figure than anything.
Yes.
But my guy got up there and accused Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas, of all people. Like, I don't know if you caught this, but I started laughing when they showed the pictures of Clarence Thomas, and they're accusing him of white nationalism.
Right. I did. I caught it. The first thing I was thinking was, wow, they're really trying to make this about race.
Brown versus the Board of Education. Again, how does one deal with the other?
Yeah.
It's literally stupid statements like that fire people up, and people actually start believing that bullshit. Because again, we live in a society where people don't want to do their own research on these things. They want to believe everything that is on the internet. They want to believe every single poll that they see that says that fucking everybody supports abortion. I'm just saying, I'm pretty confident that this nation has not gotten to the point where 70% of it supports abortion.
Right.
Again, could be wrong. Show me the data. I'll look at it and see where it's coming from, et cetera, et cetera. But
tell you what, Mike, you're going to have to get some green cloth to put over your chair, because that's very distracting. Your chair phasing in and out.
Especially with me bouncing my leg, I'm sure. My bad. Okay. I think we've targeted MSNBC quite a bit here. But let's go ahead and move on to Russia. And today it was expected. I don't think that we actually saw it. The story I saw that Putin was potentially looking at declaring
war
against the Ukraine. I do not believe he did so, but we do have a story again. Brace yourself, from MSNBC.
Now, former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor. He is also the Vice President of Russia and Europe at the U.S. Institute of Peace. Ambassador, good to see you. The U.S., of course, imposed new sanctions on Russia today, including prohibiting Americans from providing accounting or consulting services to anyone in Russia. The U.S. also sanctioned 3 of Russia's most viewed state-controlled television stations. Talk me through the kind of impact all of this could have.
So listen, this is just the latest in a series of very harsh sanctions that the United States and its allies, let's be real clear, these are international sanctions that will have effect because they are international. But this is the latest in a series that is squeezing down on the Russian economy. The goal here is to take the revenues away from the Russians that enable them to pursue this war, to bring some accountability. You saw the 2,600 members of the military who were sanctioned, the sanctions on media, sanctions on oil and gas companies and their boards. This is a continuous squeezing down, a continuous tightening of the noose around the Russian economy.
Right, and then you layer on top of that, we had the readout from the White House, G7 leaders committed to phasing out or banning the import of Russian oil. 2 questions for you on that. How quickly can that happen? I mean, it's not lost on me that you had some countries saying, well, we'll phase it out, but we can't commit to doing it today. And what kind of additional pressure is that going to put on Russia's economy?
Well, it does put pressure on Russia's economy, Alicia. So roughly $1 billion a day go to the Russians from Europeans for oil and gas. Roughly $1 billion a day is what it's costing Putin to prosecute this war. So there's a real need to cut back and reduce. You asked the right question. How quickly can this happen? Not quickly. The European Union has done amazing work, actually, in terms of getting agreement to take this very hard step. There are many nations in Europe who rely on Russia, unfortunately, bad decisions on their part, but nonetheless, that's where they are right now. And to reduce that dependence on oil and gas will take some time. Some of these steps will take a couple of months. There are some steps that will take until the end of the year. There are a couple of nations that are asking for more time than that. So this will not go into effect right away, but it is a clear signal that we're not, and the Europeans are not going to count on Russians in the future for oil and gas.
You have President Zelensky urging the U.S. to list Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism. Speaker Pelosi says if Russia is not listed as a state sponsor of terrorism, you might as well tear up the list. Your thoughts?
She's exactly right. The speaker is exactly right. The terrorism that Putin is undertaking. You just reported these attacks on civilian schools, on civilian maternity hospitals, on civilians out in the open. This is terror. This is terror. This is state-sponsored terrorism. So the speaker is exactly right.
So, Manny, and real quick before we start giving our opinions on this, I want to actually go ahead and bring on a old school co-host of the American Idiots podcast, and hopefully going to be joining us a little bit more often, Mr. Brad. Brad, we're sitting here talking about Russia. You saw a little bit of the video, but I want to start out with this. Sanctions. Again, we talked about this last week, Manny. It's going to do nothing. We need to just, honestly, in my opinion, he said tightening the noose. I don't see a noose tightening. I see Russia's economy bouncing back right now. We just need to take, and if we're going to help, we need to continue sending money. We need to continue sending weapons. These sanctions are worthless, in my opinion.
We said that the first round of sanctions, and then we started seeing the economy really dropping off over there. And you and I started saying that, hey, maybe it's working more than we thought it was going to. So I'm anxious to see what it might do. Yes, we do still need to help fund the Ukraine in weapons and equipment, stuff like that. But my big question is, since we have gone through and fought this war on terror for so long, and we're calling this terrorist, why are we waiting so long to do something about it?
That's a good point, Brad.
I mean, honestly, I think that sanctions are there. It's a little too late for sanctions. We should have been sanctioning Russia before they even really, did anything, just to kind of keep them in check. I'm not saying full on sanctions, but we should have kept Russia in check like we did in the previous administration. But, Biden's international failures are going to be something that we're just going to have to deal with. I mean, we're going to have to see what it does to their economic impact. But for sure, it's not good what Putin's being allowed to do over there. And Manny, I know that the whole situation stinks to me. Just because of, Hunter Biden and the Ukraine and all of that stuff, something just doesn't feel right about this whole situation. But I guess that's a different show, huh?
Right.
It's definitely a unique situation because, again, every time I see these sanctions, so yes, you're right. We said that about the first round of sanctions, and then we saw them. But again, we're seeing Russia bounce back. Every one of these sanctions, they drop and then they bounce back. And we've been shocked. The only thing that has really been effective against Russia, in my opinion, Brad, I'll go to you next. The only thing that's been effective that we've seen against these Russian invasion is the Ukrainian people themselves, who have gone up against a Russian army that, let's be honest, has no desire to be in the Ukraine. And other than to steal farm equipment, which is about the biggest win that they've gotten thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but the thing is, and you talk about the Russian people, you have Zelensky, the president, and then you have Vladimir Klitschko, former heavyweight champion, mayor of, I forget what city he's a mayor of. You all see him, you see them all fighting, and that's the thing. They're not going down without a fight. Now, I don't know where the information's coming from as far as, Russia goes. Are we getting misinformation? Is Putin playing the ultimate game? Because obviously you see the stories coming out with the troops in Russia of how there's a lot of discontent and they don't really want to be there. And so I don't know. I mean, it's all just, this has happened over the course of the last couple of months, and it's spiraled to a point where I don't even know if there's any fixing it right now other than full-on military assault. I just don't know.
Right.
But one of the things I was seeing was early on, they were like tracking Russian troops where they were getting pushed back. And here lately, we haven't been seeing any of that information.
Right.
It's almost like everybody that was reporting just kind of let it go.
Absolutely. It's something where, again, it's a lot like these Middle Eastern terror groups and North Korea and everybody else. These people only understand violence. Like, you're not going to get them with, don't you do that. You better not do that. Like,
right.
Again, it's sad. And Brad makes a great point. Again, Zelensky, Klitschko, everybody, you see them fighting. Every day is a master class to Joe Biden.
Everybody but Sean Penn might add.
To what now?
Sorry, I had to. Sean Penn. He'd like to be over there, but he left to come back over to say he'd like to be over there. It's weird.
I'm just saying, every day Joe Biden turns on his TV and gets a fucking master class in how to be a leader. And it's depressing that we elected a gentleman who, even though the previous gentleman wasn't a great leader in and of himself, at least he wouldn't be allowing this shit to go as far as it's gone, in my opinion.
Well, see, I'll disagree with you respectfully on the statement there. And I think that if you go back and you look at some of the strategic moves that Trump was able to do against North Korea and the likes of that kind, it basically showed that the Americans weren't going to back down should a challenge happen. With at least my perception here in lonely Arkansas, and not anything, the closest political affiliation I could do would be to watch House of Cards, is that Biden has let this country appear weak. And so, of course, you got a guy like Vladimir Putin who is going to say, okay, let me see what I can do. Let me test the boundaries. And if you give him a rope and give him a foot long rope, he's going to take a mile out of it. And that's what he's doing. And we're not doing anything other than in doing these sanctions. We need to show some kind of forceful movement, at least let him know, hey, we're not playing with you, dude. But again, that's what we've come to expect from this administration so far.
Very true. I want to ask you specifically, though, about the gentleman. He said that we were tightening the noose with these sanctions around the Russian economy. Do you think that we are playing? I think we're playing a dangerous game of wait and see with these sanctions. Now, a lot of people would argue that our hands are tied because they haven't hit one of our allied countries. But with that being said, we're playing a very dangerous game with a lot of people's lives, not just Ukraine, but all the countries surrounding Ukraine. Guess what? If we wait for a fucking missile to go into one of these allied countries, somebody's going to die.
Well,
it's uncomfortable.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, for so long, especially it seems like with a Republican-controlled government, it seems like you have the call for, well, why are we the nation's police? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And I think now we're understanding why we do what we do. I don't understand this current administration, and I guess I never will. These sanctions are not only affecting the Russians, but they seem to be trickling over here to the U.S. economy as well. I'm not sure what can be done now. I don't know if we've opened Pandora's box and things are starting to pop out that we don't want to see, or I don't know.
Well, Manny, go ahead.
There's a big difference in being the world police and going and helping a nation that is asking for help. Two totally different things. It's one thing to, go into a Vietnam type place and try to push your agenda on that country, which is what we did in Vietnam.
Right.
This is a country that is saying we don't want to be a part of them, but they're trying to force us to be. Can you give us any help?
And right now we're just like, hey, sorry about your luck. You're too small.
Right.
Like, and it's sad. It's very sad. Another thing he mentioned, he talked about how we need to start, relaxing our dependence upon foreign oil. Am I the only one that was sitting there thinking at the same time, well, fuck, we would have done that if we would have had the Keystone Pipeline that Biden didn't shut down on day one. Biden keeps talking about, oh, we'll open up more of these strategic reserves, so on and so forth. What the hell is that doing when literally you could get this shit up and running and fine within 2-3 weeks? We aren't talking about months here.
Then we get more oil, which brings prices down. It also gives jobs to more people.
Even temporarily, give it a pass till this bullshit stops. Like, it's a viable option at this point, because guess what? All of you environmentalists are having a hell of a lot of fun paying $4 a gallon in gasoline, or at least that's what it was when we filled up here in Sherwood the other day. $4 worth of gasoline. Like, are you fucking kidding me? But yeah, we can't fucking drill because it's gonna hurt our earth. And we need to.
Well, environmentalists really don't care about the environment when they're throwing their masks everywhere. Right. I swear, the trash output that I've seen floating around is a lot of masks.
Brad, what were you going to say? You're right.
I was saying, it's one of those situations where, if you really think about it, and this is a borderline tinfoil hat, but if you really think about it, what is going to drive people to buy an electric vehicle? The fact that they're spending I drive a 1500 Dodge Ram. I'm putting $125 in gas in my truck, to fill it up. But what's going to drive certain people to go buy an electric vehicle? High gas prices, because they're going to try to figure out a way to beat that, because it doesn't seem like it's going to go away. And that's the agenda that the AOCs of the world and the Bidens and this Democratic liberal movement is. We've got to go green. We've got to go green. We've got to go green. I mean, it's just.
I mean, Manny, it's not too tinfoil hatty when you think about it.
Right. And you will have people that will jump on that bandwagon because of the prices of gas. But you're also going to have people that are realists and understand that even though we have high gas prices, it is not a viable option in the long term.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, I was sitting there and I did a little bit of research on electric vehicles. I don't know why. I just get down these rabbit holes in the internet sometimes. And it takes 3 hours. You are stuck someplace for 3 hours to fully charge a vehicle. Now, yes, you get like a full tank of gas basically off of that electric charge, but you're stuck. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know too many people's houses.
A cross-country road trip is gone at that point.
You're done for the night. You're going to have to plot out every 400 miles and hope at this point. Again, we've talked about this before, Manny. You're going to have to hope
the infrastructure.
There's an electric station. Brad, it doesn't seem viable in the least to me. Even though I completely agree, it's very plausible that could be why they're dragging their feet.
These kids that are scooting around. I'm sorry.
No, I totally understand it. I'm not in for electric vehicles, but it does remind me, and Manny, you probably remember it, when they were taking used cars that you would trade in. If it had a gasoline engine, they were pouring a chemical which would solidify inside the block, rendering that motor useless. And that was during the Obama administration, of which Joe Biden was the vice president. So this just stinks of Obama 3 to me, this whole situation that I don't know. I'm hoping that in November we can do something to fix this issue, because if we don't, we are in trouble.
Manny, I'll let you go ahead and get this before.
I was just going to say, these kids that are scooting around town, it's not an issue to them because they're home every night, so they can go ahead and plug up and get their full battery. But yeah, the people that spend time going, from state to state, that is not a viable option. You're looking at truckers. There's no way that truckers could do anything.
Could you imagine
with an
how much
electrical
time
vehicle.
it would take for a truck to fill up? We're talking about a small car that takes 3 hours to fill up. There is no way. Again, it's just absolutely, it's not viable. And Brad, I want to address something before we move on. You said Obama 3. Honestly, this is worse than Obama. Obama had a pair. I know that sounds terrible, but Obama, honestly, I felt like made some decisions that were actually you could find some legal and political understanding of. There's stuff that Joe Biden does that you're just like, what the fuck are you thinking, dude? And again, every day I wake up and I'm like, fuck, I voted for that motherfucker. How's he gonna screw me today? I mean, it is what it is at this point, but hopefully, like you said, Brad, in November we can make something happen, and hopefully in 2 more years.
If there's a candidate that's worth doing that with.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Okay, speaking of Russia, Brittney Griner is now being classified as wrongfully detained, and we have a story on that from Good Morning America.
Us on WNBA star Brittney Griner. The State Department now saying she should not have been detained in Russia on drug charges. Whit Johnson is here now to explain what it means for the government's involvement in her case. Good morning, Whit.
Robin, good morning. This is important. This new classification means the U.S. government will now negotiate more aggressively to win Brittney Griner's release and will not wait for the Russian legal system to play out here. A State Department spokesperson saying in a statement they have now determined that the Russian Federation has wrongfully detained Griner and that a special presidential envoy for hostage affairs will lead the interagency team for securing her release. Griner has been in custody for more than 75 days now. The two-time U.S. Olympic gold medalist was playing basketball in Russia during the WNBA offseason and was nabbed at an airport for allegedly carrying hashish oil, an offense punishable there by up to 10 years in prison. With the WNBA season kicking off on Friday, the league will acknowledge Griner with her initials and jersey number 42 featured on the sidelines of all 12 league courts. This comes after the release of former U.S. Marine Trevor Reed last week and a top-secret prisoner swap seen in this video broadcast on Russian state TV. Pressure also now growing to free another American, Paul Whelan, who's been in Russia's custody since late 2018. Robin.
All right, well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking.
Shut the hell up, Robin.
Since 2018.
Since 2018. So
okay, we weren't going through all this stuff that we are right now in 2018. So either he actually did something that was illegal in Russia, or what? I mean, what?
My question is this: why is it taking 75 days of people saying, "Hey, this chick needs to be fucking back home," for them to finally be like, "Oh yeah, the president, we're gonna help him out with a little extra. We're not gonna wait for Russia to decide what to do, so on and so forth." Like, what the fuck, dude?
Like you said, we don't have a set.
Citizen over there. What now?
Like you said, he doesn't have a set.
I guess that's what it is. That's what it comes down to. Because I don't understand. We have a guy over there who's been there since 2018. I guarantee you that there's been talks about that guy. But let's be honest, I can't even remember the guy's name. How sad is that? That's
right.
What do we hear about him compared to Griner, who, let's be honest, there's a reason why Griner is more recognizable, and it's because she's an athlete. But with that being said, this is still absolutely unacceptable. There are at least 2 Americans over there wrongfully detained. I'm just saying, is there no provocation there to go whoop some ass, Brad?
Well, I mean, I don't think you can launch an all-out military assault. I mean, if she was caught with it in her possession, obviously there's a reason. But
they're saying that she wasn't now. So
yeah.
you can't lean on that statement any longer.
Well, this just seems like a very convenient issue that has just arisen, especially the timing now of what they're saying. Well, now she's not. Now she's illegally detained. I mean, it just seems like that I don't know the details about it, other than what I have seen on the media. But it's just how convenient that we now have a story that's probably putting Joe Biden in a positive light. I'll have to see how it plays out and the full details of what now.
You have to back up before that, Brad.
Wasn't illegally detained. So
B-Rad,
to decide.
You have to back up before that, because it was really convenient that all of a sudden this athlete was found with an illegal substance.
I mean, again, tinfoil hat, but what's the chances it was planted on her?
Right. And that's something that you and I had talked about before, Mike, that it's really crazy that she knows she's traveling and all of a sudden, boom, there's this illegal substance.
I don't think anyone's going to argue that Brittney Griner.
And it was right before they went into Ukraine and started their crap.
I don't think anyone's going to argue that Brittney Griner smokes weed. I think it's pretty common amongst athletes, period, to smoke weed.
I mean,
but
come on.
She should know at this point how to safely transport her illegal substances to where it won't be found. I'm just saying, it is kind of.
Or the salaries most of these players make, they just, do as much as they can, and the rest of it's just, gone.
And it just so happened to happen right at the beginning of the fucking conflict. Like,
right.
There's a lot of bullshit to that.
So what you got to say about that, Brad?
Like I said, I'd like to know how we went from the substance to not having a substance and where that came from. I don't doubt in my mind that it could have been planted on her, especially overseas. I've seen plenty of videos here in the States where police officers have reached into their pocket and planted evidence. So it doesn't shock me that that's a possibility.
Police officers are impeccable. You can't question anything they do, Brad.
That's the first on American Idiots that we've ever said.
So, I mean, it's just weird. It's the whole situation without really knowing full on how now this detainment has become illegal is, to me, it's like, where's the proof that it's illegal? You can tell me it's illegal, but you haven't shown me any physical proof as to why you say it's now an illegal detainment. I'm not taking up for the Russians by any stretch.
No, absolutely.
I'm just saying you haven't shown me anything other than a statement. Well, hell, back in 92, I was told that O.J. Simpson's, the evidence was planted on him. He didn't do it, which we know is horseshit.
And we were told Bill Clinton didn't in hell. I mean,
and he didn't have sexual relations with that woman.
Bill also didn't have sexual relations with that young intern.
So, it's just one of those situations. This just seems like, and if it is, then I feel bad for Brittney Griner, but this just seems like, she's being puppeted out there for a political gain. It's kind of like Corona.
Either way, I feel bad for Brittney Griner, because whether she had it or not, her life is being played out for the political gain that you're talking about. 9 times out of 10, I guarantee you that an athlete that is traveling in Russia, if they're caught with that substance, it's a slap on the hand and, hey, don't do it next time. But because of the situation we're in, they're going to make an example.
Can we?
I think she's the female equivalent of what LeBron James is to the NBA. I think she's the face of the WNBA. I mean, I would personally, I don't have a problem if we do some free agency and put LeBron over there and bring her back. I'm fine with that.
Just a quick swap.
I mean, free agency should exist for everything, in my opinion, but that's
right.
There.
I mean, apparently, it's not out of the realm of possibility, because we did prisoner swaps for the one guy, for the last guy. So, I mean, I'm just saying.
Well, what I want to know is who the high-profile prisoner was that they traded out for the Michael Reed guy.
Right?
Yeah. How many high-profile Russian prisoners does America have?
Right. How does this work, though, for real? Like, does Joe call up Putin and be like, okay, I've got this guy over here. I'm going to need him back, and I'll send you a 4th-round draft pick.
Exactly.
Is that how this works?
It's definitely a chess game, man. L7 to.
Yeah, just insane.
Oh man, that's funny. Okay, y'all. So this next one's going to be interesting because I have a video clip here from a TV show on YouTube called The Doctors, and they're talking about gender identification amongst young children. And we're going to talk about Don't Say Gay and how does that bill affect young children. So let's watch this, and we will be right back.
The following program contains mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised. How can parents navigate this new landscape? Take a look.
Confusion, questions, and objections, gender diversity is the topic of conversation these days. In California, a mom took legal action against a school district after two teachers allegedly, secretly manipulated her 11-year-old daughter into believing she was a transgender boy. Over in Florida, lawmakers passed HB 1157, dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill, which bans teaching young students about gender diversity. Proponents of the bill say it's needed to prevent groomers, or specifically gay and trans teachers, from attempting to corrupt children. Outrage surrounds these measures at every turn. So from policies to pronouns, what's a parent to do?
Joining us to dig deeper is leading expert in the field of transgender healthcare, gender reassignment surgeon, Dr. Marcy Bowers, and also joining us is the author of The End of Gender, neuroscientist Dr. Deborah So. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Marcy, let's start with you. Dr. Bowers, having transitioned yourself many years ago, can you share your perspective on the current state of affairs?
There is nothing more core to an individual than their own gender identity. People get the idea, though, that because I've transitioned, that I can't be objective about this. But really, my identity doesn't just start and end with trans. You know, I'm also a mother, I'm a parent, I'm a concerned citizen, but I'm a doctor. So those things really take precedent. And most of all, what I am really is an optimist, and I think that this exploration of this area between male and female is actually a healthy thing for society.
Depending where you live, gender expression is either applauded or unfortunately completely struck down in schools. So, you know, there's really a big diverse opinion out there. What's your take, Marcy?
Well, you know, it's always a very bad precedent when you shut down exchange of information. Shutting down an open discussion, I think that's a really dangerous precedent. You know, in my era.
Can I jump in though? When you, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm wondering, when you say shutting down discussion about information, what if this information is not backed by science? Is that still a helpful dialogue to teach children?
Dr. Deborah, you know, all of our decisions are backed by science as much as we can. This field hasn't evolved the way it has without a healthy adherence to science, and it is backed up.
So something like gender fluidity, can you tell me what is the science backing that concept up? Because this is being taught to children as young as in kindergarten, and it's not backed by science.
What harm is it to society that we're talking about gender identity? This is all the new generations do, is it's just trying to put words to these kinds of feelings.
I would argue it's not just about giving words to these feelings or to try new things out. I mean, in some cases, young people are actually undergoing medical interventions that they later go on to regret. I mean, if you look at the situation with education,
Dr. So,
these children are being groomed into a particular ideology that activists have decided to take on for themselves. We see multiple lawsuits happening in the last few months alone.
That's simply, I don't know where you're getting your information, but if you're going to go off and
are you questioning these lawsuits, whether or not they've actually happened? Because there have been. How can you do that though?
I'm questioning the premise of where we're going with this conversation.
Since the fall.
If the conversation is about looking to talking about gender identity, then we need to have a healthy dialogue, not an assault of isolated cases, rare instances of regret, and lawsuits that I haven't seen, and the gender therapists I know are not seeing these kinds of regret issues. These are discussions
I would argue
that we
that's
have.
because the therapists
these are
on board with the
discussions that are made.
activism and on board with the ideology, and that's why they're not having a problem. Other clinicians who are not on board with this ideology have their hands tied by the law because they will. In Canada, we have a law that just passed that a clinician can potentially face 5 years in prison if they don't affirm an individual seeking gender affirmation. And in the States, you have 24 states that have banned any therapy that is not affirmation.
That is not true. What they're banning is conversion therapy, where you're trying to turn someone who's gay or transgender back to their to their birth gender.
So a very interesting dialogue between the two doctors here. Brad, I'm going to go with you first because we have talked about this on this show before, Manny. Brad, do you believe that it is acceptable to speak to children as young as kindergarten through third grade, which is third or fourth, Manny, for don't say it. Third grade? Do you believe it is acceptable to talk to them 9 years old about how they identify gender-wise?
No, and here's why. You have a kindergartner, and I've helped raise a girl that's now 23, she'll be 24. I'll be 40, 24. And hell no, that's not for some teacher, some doctor, some scientist or whatever at a school to try to help educate my child or your child or anyone else's child on gender identification. I agree with the lady from Toronto and in the aspect that there's these activists now. I mean, look, I don't care what you do in the privacy of your home or in your life. I shouldn't say privacy, in your home or whatever. If you choose to be, a homosexual individual, that's fine. If it's not a choice and it's somehow, genetically, physically possible, I don't understand it. But if that's what you want to do, that's what you need to do. But no, absolutely not. Hell no. No school should dictate what's going on.
Well, and I think my biggest issue, and again, you brought it up, whether this be a issue of, whether you're born this way or what have you, that's not the thing that is on the table here as much as I don't think whether you're born this way or not, you're having thoughts of, oh, well, I feel like I'm a boy or I feel like I'm a girl at as little as 5 and 6 years old. And honestly, I would extend the law, if anything, up until high school age, or at least junior high, 13, 14, where you start understanding more about your body and you start going through that transition into puberty and things like that, where you can make, again, like I've said on this show about multiple subjects, a fully rational, informed decision about these things. We should not be talking about 5 to 5-year-olds and forcing doctors to affirm their sexuality and not tell them, okay, well, hey, this is what you're talking about. This is, at least allow a doctor to explain to the child.
But Michael, let me. I had to go take care of a call real quick at work. But what I'm saying, yeah, it absolutely, the statement I made, it is on the table because it all involves the same principle. But we're talking about a kindergartner. I know Manny's got a young child, but we're talking about one that can't even figure out. Do I want to color with purple or do I want to color with red? And are you telling me now that a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old can actually have the comprehensive thought process to think, okay, let me do this now. How's this going to affect me 10 years from now? Jesus Christ, I'm 43 years old and I make a decision and I don't even think about what's going to happen down the road. I just do it.
Exactly. It's absolutely unacceptable to, number one, remove, and like Manny said on this show before, it's one of those situations where you shouldn't be getting that advice from your teacher. You shouldn't be getting that advice from somebody at school. You should be getting that advice from your parents. Your parents should be talking to you.
Here's what I want to ask both of you guys, and I listened to the dude or female, whatever you want to call them, that was the surgeon, and I noticed that she dodged a lot of the intelligent points that the lady from Canada brought up. She would not affirm or confirm the science that backs some of her arguments. And then if you rewatch that clip, because I pay attention now to other than just what they say. But if you go back and you watch the very end of that clip, she starts to go down this one road and then she quickly changes it and says something completely different, because she almost agreed with that lady from Canada. She almost did, but then she changed it real quick. So I just don't know. I don't understand the whole changing gender thing. I don't see where science can all of a sudden change after, years and years and years of explaining this chromosome and that chromosome, how all of a sudden, how the hell did we miss that? So if we missed it back then, I really choose and decide now to kind of lose a whole lot of faith in science, because it seems like science can change when it's necessary to fit the narrative of the person that's trying to use it or go against it. That's just my thought.
Manny?
Well, I want to start by pointing out the fact that their warning, talking about this is mature content, but then they want to go on to apply it to immature individuals as far as we're talking about children.
That's a damn good point.
That is, that's an asinine statement right there when you're talking about, oh, this is mature content, but you're applying it to children.
That's a damn
like
good
Brad
point,
said, but my daughter liked the color green until a boy at school told her that that was a boy's color. Now she says she don't like green. So it's things like that. They can't even decide what colors to like or not like, because there are certain things that are tied to it. And if the kid can't figure things out like this, you think we're really worried about their sexual preference?
Right? What kid, if you ask any kindergarten to third grade child what sexual preference even means, are they going to be able to give you an answer?
Well, right. And my thing too, though, is if you took, and I think this, if you took a 5-year-old child and you left them isolated, still having their parents, but if you isolated them from any incoming knowledge or anything like that from social media or the world or whatever, I don't think they're going to have a concept of what's going on with this. I think what you're seeing is there are children who are brought up with certain parents that may feel a certain way about something. They jump on this bandwagon, and it's the same thing that I used to argue with Sean about, indoctrination. They would always say that Christians indoctrinated their children to become Christians, but it's just that child is focusing on what his parent or his role model is doing at the time. And I think that they're getting a lot of that information from them. It's just like, just for instance, if you have a child, if you're two atheists are raising a child and you say, well, we're not going to indoctrinate this child. Well, if you don't sit them
automatically
down,
are just by raising them.
Because if you don't sit them down and go, okay, me and your mom, we do not believe in a higher power, but here's this side of things. But if you're taking all of that stuff out of the home, then that child's going to gravitate to that side because you've ultimately third party, indoctrinated this child. And I think that goes the same way with this other thing.
Yeah.
And I think what people are missing about all of this, and again, I don't think we have an abundance of kindergartners through third graders questioning their sexuality. But what they're missing is nobody's taking away with Don't Say Gay your ability for your child to speak to somebody. They can speak to their parents. They can speak to their spiritual leader, somebody that they trust. They just can't speak about it in school.
Why are they pushing so hard for a teacher to be able to bring this up?
If I'm a teacher too, I don't want to have that pressure of having to explain this type of stuff to kindergartner through third graders. Are you kidding me? That's putting so much additional pressure on these teachers for conversations that, let's be honest, they didn't think that they would have to worry about until the kids got to junior high and high school age.
Well, what qualifications do these teachers have? I mean, I go back to when I was in school. This wasn't even an issue, but show me what qualifications this teacher here has to even educate my child on this, this ideology or this way of thinking or this whatever you want to call it. You need to show.
I mean, as far as any of that goes, I mean, we didn't even go through health class talking about the reproductive system and all of that until we were 7th or 8th grade.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say. So I was actually putting Saturday school over that because I couldn't stop laughing when the teacher made us say vagina 100 times over. That was funny.
But
it was really hard though.
But now we want to talk to kindergartners about how they don't really want their penis or their vagina.
Right.
Like, are you kidding me? It makes no sense.
I just want a different one.
You're right, Brad, about the whole situation with the woman. The woman in Toronto comes in and just, by the way, I'm just saying, hit her with a freaking cross right on the jaw to come out saying, okay, I just want to know, you guys talk about how everything you guys do is based in science, but what's the science in gender?
Where is the science? Yeah. And at that point, she never looks directly at the camera anymore. She's looking everywhere but.
And I mean, she tried to act like the woman came in attacking her. No, she asked a valid question. Where is the science in these things?
Which is a common tactic with people when they don't have an answer or know that they're wrong.
Exactly. You want to, again, I don't care if you identify as a fucking cow. Just don't try to act like ever since kindergarten you've identified as a cow. Because in kindergarten, you didn't give a damn about anything except for what cartoon you're going to watch when you get home. I'm just saying.
Well, and here's my point. We're talking about what you identify as. So, Michael, if you have a child and they're 13 years old and they want to go down to the local bar and have a drink, can that child now identify as a 21-year-old and have a legal substance and ground to drink alcohol because that's what he identifies as?
I mean, we're opening Pandora's box. It's not an invalid question, in my opinion. Man,
I identify as a billionaire, but that doesn't happen.
Right.
I got an 800
credit score.
It comes down to other people pretending that your feelings about yourself are correct.
Right.
That's what these people are expecting. That we can pretend that your feelings about what you think about yourself are correct.
Yeah. And if you dare disagree with them, how dare you? You're a fucking terrible person, and Disney's going to come
You're a
after
chauvinist, or you're a sexist, or you're a homophobe. Yeah, they start attacking your character.
And mind you, by the way, I would like to point this out too. I'm no fan of Ron DeSantis in and of himself. I think Ron DeSantis has plenty to attack, but this is not one. Like, for real, we shouldn't even have to be having this bill. What makes me wonder is how many of these teachers are having this discussion, or how many of these students, again, like you said before we went on the air, how many students, show me the empirical data where we polled this many students and this many students said that they felt like they were depressed or they were going to off themselves because they weren't able to identify as a little boy or a little girl or weren't able to change their identity. You won't be able to, because if you ask kids these questions, they're not going to understand them. That's right. That's my thinking. Brad, anything before we move on?
Well, I think that I've come around on the certain thoughts of like the bullying situation, because I go back and I remember now what, if you got picked on in school, you went home and you got away from it all. Now social media is pounding you, and you can't ever get away from the situation because it follows you. And I think that's the same thing here. I think that you're seeing a lot of misinformation, and you're seeing a lot of this. Well, the grass is greener on this side of the fence and you're feeling this way because, you know, you were supposed to be a woman, but you came out a man. And so, but you can fix that situation. And I still, to this day, I don't care who it is, you will never convince me that a 5-year-old or even up to a 3rd grader can understand or even define the words that they're being taught in school and in the social media and everything like that. So to me, I think it's dumb. And just as, you know, just as stupid as it goes, did you know that they are removing Captain Hook's hook because it vilifies disabled people?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
No, I'm serious. That's where we've come in society today. There's just woke culture that's creating all of these problems. I mean, you're taking Captain Hook's hook away from him because it vilifies disabled people. At that point, I'm done.
That's those Disney people.
I'm done.
What do you even call him now, Bob?
Well, I'm going to tell you like this. If we could swap parts around.
Captain Woke.
You know, if we could swap parts around, I'm okay with that because, you know, I could trade this sumbitch in any day. But to get rid of it, no, not happening. It's just dumb. I want a better model. But if we start talking about that, I'm in. That's all I'm saying.
It's definitely something. Manny, anything you got on this one before we move on?
No, I was going to say earlier when he was talking about kids identifying as a cow and stuff like that, my wife used to teach at a preschool program, and there was a child that identified as a cat because she would meow and hiss all the time.
That's awesome. Oh, Lord. Okay. So I know we're definitely going to get some fun out of Brad on this one. Oath Keepers are now alleging that they spoke with Trump aides in advance of the January 6th riots. We have a story here from everybody's favorite newscasters, MSNBC, on this.
In all of the discussions and reporting around January 6th, you might remember hearing about the Oath Keepers. They're a far-right militia group. They were among the insurrectionists who attacked the Capitol. And last year, their leader, Stewart Rhodes, and a number of other members were indicted for seditious conspiracy. The DOJ's indictment of Rhodes says this: Rhodes and certain co-conspirators planned to stop the lawful transfer of presidential power, which included multiple ways to deploy force. They coordinated travel across the country to enter Washington, D.C., equipped themselves with a variety of weapons, donned combat and tactical gear, and were prepared to answer Rhodes' call to take up arms at Rhodes' direction. The Oath Keepers weren't working entirely alone, however. They were seen providing security for Roger Stone, a longtime Trump ally, on January 5th. They also messaged back and forth with another far-right group, the Proud Boys, even meeting in person the day before the insurrection in a D.C. parking garage. And now, one member of the Oath Keepers says Stewart Rhodes was trying to get in touch with Donald Trump himself on the night of January 6th. According to a member who pled guilty on Wednesday, he was with Stewart Rhodes in a hotel room not far from the Capitol during the evening of January 6th, when Rhodes called an unnamed Trump intermediary on the speakerphone. He heard Rhodes repeatedly implore the individual to tell President Trump to call upon groups like the Oath Keepers to forcibly oppose a transfer of power. According to this testimony, the person on the line denied that request to speak directly with Trump. Joining me now is the reporter who broke this story about Stewart Rhodes possibly trying to get in touch with Donald Trump. Ryan Riley is a justice reporter for NBC News. Ryan, always happy to see you. This is my question straight out of the gate. What's a Trump intermediary? That's the word that's being used. It doesn't have a legal definition, in my opinion. So is this someone who would have been able to directly connect Rhodes to Donald Trump? I mean, what's the degree of separation here when you talk about an intermediary?
Yeah, you know, that's really the big question here. It doesn't really specify who this person is, but what is indicated in these court documents, and I don't think that prosecutors put this in there if this is someone who doesn't have the ability to actually get in touch with Trump, but they say that this person denied the connection to Trump. So I think that's the key part here. But yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of different people that this could be, whether, you know, if you just want to say it could be inside, this could be someone from the White House, it could be someone from the Trump campaign, or it could just be someone sort of in Trump's orbit. There's a lot of people who had connections to Donald Trump. But I think the key thing here is that this was someone according to the way this court document is written, that had the capability of connecting him to Trump, even if that was denied. Because if this just wasn't somebody who had any connections at all, they're not going to add that in. This is an essential part of this case, and really shows how dangerous this was and how close things were. And remember, this is after the Capitol attack. This is when the grounds of the Capitol were still being cleared. There were still law enforcement officers sweeping the building, trying to force people off the grounds of the Capitol. This is shortly after Trump sent the video telling people to go home, but before he said, "Remember this day forever." So it was in this like key evening hour, as this is an active attack unfolding, that this individual, this head of the Oath Keepers, was in a suite trying to get connected directly with Donald Trump.
Ryan, by his own admission, Trump didn't use a phone, right? And we know that this was a phone call attempt to connect Stewart Rhodes with Donald Trump on January 6th. So who's the person, Ryan, that would have been able to connect Donald Trump with Stewart Rhodes, assuming it happened? Mark Meadows seems to be the common denominator that we're finding out time and time again through the January 6th investigation, through that committee, as well as the DOJ. Is there any supposition you've heard in your reporting about whether or not that person was Mark Meadows?
I have no indication of that. I think that look at Don Jr., right? Don Jr. is trying to reach his own father on January 6th and was going through Mark Meadows. So, obviously a lot of people were competing for Trump's attention at this moment. This was a really, really hectic time. If you just look at the timeline in terms of what was happening on the evening of January 6th, a lot of things are happening inside the White House. So you don't know exactly who this person that they got on the line was, but just the fact that there is some sort of link, a 1 degree of separation between the Oath Keepers and Donald Trump, I think is significant. If you look back at some of the indications, with the Proud Boys, for example, during the debate, the presidential debate, Trump told them to stand back and stand by. And there are all these people in Trump's orbit who are associated with the Oath Keepers as well. They provided security for a lot of people in Trump's orbit. So, obviously Roger Stone is a name that comes up frequently here. That perhaps might be one of the on the scale of things, right? Like in terms of the hookup to Trump, Roger Stone, if it does turn out that Roger Stone was on the other side of this call, which is, I should say, he has denied, then that would be a situation that, is step sort of even removed from Trump, because he didn't have the best connection to Trump necessarily at that point. But I do think it's important to just look at the language that prosecutors used here and said that, this was someone who denied the request for him to connect to Trump. So indicate.
Okay, I'm done with that already. Okay, let's get into this. Number one,
right.
I want to look at.
Let's get into.
This has been.
You're looking at.
Go ahead.
You're looking at the Proud Boys. You're looking at the Oath Keepers. You're looking at how many other groups of people. And this is one person that has said they tried to get a hold of Trump.
Who said
this
he didn't
much
call the
news
White House?
is coming from this accusation.
Who said they didn't just call the White House and was like, "Hey, I want to speak to Trump"? Like, why does it have to be Mark Meadows? Why do we have to assume that there's a link? And also, mind you, this does absolutely nothing, unless I'm mistaken, Brad and Manny, to say that Donald Trump had foreknowledge of the January 6th riots, because this call took place when? After the January 6th riots.
Have you not understood the narrative that is being pushed? Anytime they can associate something negative with Donald Trump, it's going to happen. And furthermore, neither one of them congratulated their co-host on a tremendous victory Saturday afternoon. Rachel Maddow ran the race of her life and won the Kentucky Derby finally, and neither one of them congratulated her. That pisses me off. But anyway. No, come on. I'm an intermediary, really? So if I'm robbing a bank and I go, shit, Google, why? Hey, Donald, can you get a hold of Donald for me? It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's what he said regarding January 6th was he felt that there was a fix in on the election, and they're using what he said to say that he demanded they storm the Capitol. Whether you think Donald Trump is a moron or not, he has to know that there is no way other than convincing Mike Pence to alter the course of the Electoral College or decision making, that there was no way they were going to change that. They could storm the Capitol all day long. And if they teach the presidency, they would just reverse it as soon as they got it under control because it was done under like a hostage type situation. So all they're doing is a smear campaign against Donald Trump because they're scared to death of him in 2024.
I literally, they do, every time we talk about the January 6th commission, they affirm, and it's becoming laughable at this point, my initial thought. And Manny, I'm sure you remember this, that this is nothing more than an untrustworthy witch hunt. And it became such because they refused to allow Republicans on the panel, except for Liz Cheney.
And she's not even a Republican.
It's asinine, to be honest with you, that we're still even having these discussions. But again, who's to say he didn't just call the White House switchboard, Manny, and say, hey, yo, let me talk to Trump? And they were like, no. Like,
show me. I want to see the phone calls. They record if he's an intermediary to Trump that is worth his weight in gold or salt or whatever. Show me where he called. Show me the call log. You've got it.
They're gonna know the phone number. They're gonna know the phone number. All you have to do is look up the phone number, and guess what? You're gonna be able to be like, oh, they talked to this person. Like it's
my God. I mean, they can come through and tell me who I called 2 weeks ago. And you're telling me in Washington, D.C. they can't? Horseshit.
As much as I didn't vote for the guy, Manny, this is a sham at this point. It's
like you said, it's a smear campaign because they are scared of Trump, and they are trying to discredit him before he even announces that he's going to run in 2024.
It's getting laughable at this point. Again,
for some, it's laughable, but for others, they wholeheartedly believe this crap.
A phone call afterwards, after the fact, somehow links Trump to foreknowledge of an attack that happened at least 3 hours, 4 or 5 hours.
Well, Michael, and the thing you're not mentioning is, and it's been debated in that January 6th commission, Trump was still speaking when the crowd started migrating to the Capitol. Before he even said anything about go let your voices be heard, they were already leaving. It's already been noted, pictured, and documented that there were other organizations within that crowd that were there to create havoc and chaos, and they felt, holy crap, this is our moment. This is our moment to be on the big stage and not attack some federal building in Kansas, but this is the capital of the United States that we're going to be able to go through. And I think there were some people there in that group that believed wholeheartedly that the election was stolen and they were going to try to do what they had to do. But I think the large contingency of them just saw as an average American citizen the opportunity to storm something that you would think is impenetrable.
Yeah. Hey, we're streaking through the court.
I mean, come on. Who wouldn't relish the opportunity to sit in Pelosi's desk and put their feet up on her desk? Come on.
I mean, to be honest, if it wasn't a crime, I'd totally take a dump in her top drawer. I'm just saying. But anyway, with that being said, are we also negating the fact that these are people that, let's be honest here, human nature, you're going to save your own ass, could be making something up to give these people what they want to hear?
Yeah. Or could he be trying to create some kind of deal going on? Hey, I did this. It wasn't all my fault. Blah, blah, blah. We've heard it time and time again. I mean, you look at the guy that I can't even remember, McVeigh. You know, he wrote about how he was such an Bill Clinton was. He hated Bill Clinton. He hated the government, and then he did the Ruby Ridge thing to blow up the federal building over in Oklahoma. I mean, it's all about, it's funny how we are now, what, a year and 5 months or so removed from that situation. And all of a sudden this now comes to light a year and a half later.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Very true.
I call bullshit. And I may be wrong, but I do. And then it's not because I'm a Trump supporter. It's just bullshit.
No, and again, I'm by no means a Trump supporter, and I'm calling bullshit on this whole commission because all they're doing is wasting taxpayer dollars. Again, a resource that's very valuable right now, because let's be honest, we fucking spent how much money and threw our country how much into debt with these damn stimuluses that we have all this fucking inflation from. Like, ugh, it's just stupid.
Can we get a commission to investigate election fraud in the Warnock senatorial race? And
I'm
being serious. I'm being
investigate the Clinton crime family.
Right.
Well, I'm being serious because of this. Let me ask you this. And this is just pure speculation. It just dawned on me a couple of weeks ago, and I've been wanting to ask somebody's opinion on it. But when Biden went out in force for Warnock and the other gentleman in Georgia, he said, if you vote for these two, your check's in the mail. Now, is that not something that had that been Trump saying that about somebody? There would be a commission on it. He rigged the election. He promised money. He bought votes. So this just shows how stupid.
You're not lying about that. That is definitely accurate. It would have been something. And again, that goes.
It just shows how stupid this whole thing is. I talked to okay, who's the intermediary? Tell me.
Right. I'm sure. I'm almost willing to put money that if it actually happened, it was a White House switchboard operator.
If Don Jr. can't get a hold of his dad, by God, I don't think Cody Rhodes or whatever the hell his name is going to be able to get a hold of him either.
Right.
Hey, this is your son. I can't talk to you right now. Come on.
A year and 5 months later, this is their smoking gun that links Trump to.
What did you see Did you see the smirk on that dude's face when he got ready to tell the story? Like he was about to bust one? Like, it's MSNBC, for crying out loud. Their ratings are falling off harder than anything I've ever seen before. Hell yeah, they're looking for something to get back in the mainstream.
Very true. Very true. Manny, you got anything to add to this before we move on? Okay, let's talk about Jill Biden's unannounced visit to the Ukraine. Was it a photo op or a show of genuine support? And we have a story from News Nation on this.
Visit. Today, First Lady Dr. Jill Biden met with President Zelensky's wife, Olena Zelenska, in Ukraine. The unannounced trip took place in the southwestern part of the country. The two were in a converted school that now serves as temporary housing for displaced citizens. The First Lady's visit comes as President Biden and leaders of the G7 met virtually with President Zelensky, collectively announcing new sanctions against Russia in response to its invasion of Ukraine. The new measures include sanctions against 3 Russian television stations and executives from a private-owned Russian bank. News Nation's Raquel Martin has more on today's big meeting and the First Lady's trip.
This visit from First Lady Jill Biden is the latest in a stream of high-profile U.S. officials who have recently visited Ukraine to offer their support to the country that is still in the midst of a bloody battle with no end in sight. First Lady Jill Biden kicked off this Mother's Day in a war zone alongside the First Lady of Ukraine. Sunday, the two met at a school now taking in displaced Ukrainian students, where First Lady Jill Biden extended her support to all of Ukraine.
This war has to stop. The people of the United States stand with the people of Ukraine.
The visit comes on the cusp of a potentially pivotal week of the war. Monday, President Putin will hold a massive parade marking Victory Day. It's a date that celebrates the Russian defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II.
We're preparing for everything.
On CBS's Face the Nation, the Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S. said she predicts Putin will use Monday's event to recruit more soldiers to fight.
I hope that then it will be evident to all Russians what they're doing in Ukraine. That's an aggressive war. And the question is, are they prepared to have more tens of thousands dying in Ukraine for no reason?
On Fox News Sunday, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham says the U.S. must continue to send military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine.
I'm not asking for troops on the ground, but to make sure that Ukraine can expel Russia and that Putin's a war criminal in the eyes of the world.
In an effort to deter escalating Russian aggression, U.S. and G7 partners Sunday announced new sanctions targeting Russian oil imports, dozens of banking executives, and even 3 television stations in Russia. The First Lady's visit to Ukraine definitely being well received. The Ukrainian First Lady expressed her gratitude and called the act itself courageous. Still no word from the White House for when the president will follow suit. We know already he has visited nearby Poland. For now in Washington, Raquel Martin, back to you, Utabe.
Thanks for watching.
For the love of God, please don't send the fucking president of the United States to fucking Ukraine. Are you kidding me? Number one, let's just talk about the fact that you put your fucking vice or your fucking first lady in grave danger going over to Ukraine. Where literally all this is, hey, I just want to let you know you've got my support. You know how leftists complain about thoughts and prayers when people put thoughts and prayers on stuff? Like literally, Jill Biden just went over there and was the living embodiment of thoughts and prayers. You're in my prayers. Like literally, that's all she did. Hey, what the fuck?
Hey, I used to babysit Joe Biden's kids, and now I babysit him.
Like literally, what was the point of this? Why?
It was a dog and pony show, plain and simple. That's all it was.
Literally.
Send Joe Biden over there, please. Send Joe over there. Shit. Put him over there in the war zone. Who gives a shit?
You're as bad as Sean with his boomers back in the day. But no, legitimately, I see no actual outside of political, hey, we can get our approval numbers up. I see no point to doing this. Manny, do you see any real support coming from Jill Biden making a trip to Ukraine?
No, and that's what I was going to say. This is strictly to save face, to look like we're doing something we're really not doing, and y'all have pointed it out. You know, she said we're here to offer our support. Later, she said that she was there to extend her support. And she herself told them the people of the U.S. are standing with you. But we're not. We're not doing anything to really help them.
Nope.
It's funny because they said that they're putting sanctions on this oil, but nobody's turning that oil away.
Nope.
Why don't you reject the oil that's coming out of Russia and start purchasing it from other countries?
Well, then, my God, the first time we've ever heard the UN say something, I heard earlier the UN's considering drafting a resolution that would ban importing Russian oil. Like, my God, it's about time the UN did something that actually made sense.
But the bottom line, to show actual support, maybe we should show actual support instead of just going over there and having one person say something.
Exactly. George W. Bush used to fucking go over to Iraq. I'm not knocking that. What I'm knocking is when George W. Bush went over to Iraq, we were actually fucking doing something for the people of Iraq. You know, what are we doing for the people of Ukraine? We're sanctioning Russia, which, let's be honest, is poking the bear, and that's about it. Legitimately, I don't see how we are standing, like you said, Manny, with Ukraine. I don't see how we're, besides people changing their Facebook shit, profile pictures to a Ukrainian flag, probably the first time.
Yeah, that stops a lot of violence.
It does.
Right. I mean, Ukraine asked the U.S. to impose a no-fly zone over the Ukraine. U.S. didn't. Where's the support?
Let's just be honest. Jill Biden went over there, and she was like, "My thoughts and prayers with you." Is that camera off? Hey, did Hunter leave anything over here that I might pick up with me?
Do I need to pick anything up on my way out?
I mean, is there another laptop somewhere? Just asking for a friend. I'm asking for a friend. Yeah, I mean, it was a dog and pony show. It was I mean, I don't know how many wars have ever been prevented by putting a Ukrainian flag on your profile pic, but it is what it is.
Hey, it is what it is. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our final topic before the American Idiot of the Week. First, we had Obama phones. Now we have Biden internet, apparently. My question is, where's the money going to come from for this? We already have an abundance of these social programs, including Obama phones, that are coming out of taxpayers' pockets. How does the Biden administration pay for this without adding to our national deficit? And again, it seems to me that Democrats seem to think we have an endless supply of money because, hey, we can always print it, we control it. Brad, we'll start with you. What do you think about Biden offering free internet to low-income families?
Well, and I'll be honest, when it comes to the internet and phones, for that matter, as far as being able to provide internet, unfortunately, a lot of things in today's society require the internet. And so if you can feasibly and fiscally fund us a way to provide internet to people that might not have access to it, I wouldn't be opposed to that. And if you could do it in a manner that didn't cost so much, maybe you take away the Obama phone and you go strictly the internet. But, I do feel like the internet has become more of a necessity than a luxury in this day and age. I don't think you can do anything without it anymore. Hell, I called AT&T the other day and I spoke to a fucking robot for almost 30 minutes.
Valid point. Manny, what do you think about Biden internet?
Very similar to Brad's assumptions, Brad's views. But I take it one step further. If the internet is something that we desperately need, then it needs to be free for all.
I would agree.
Not just for low-income people. I mean, if the internet is something that every household needs, then it needs to be streamed out there for every household. Bottom line.
Hell, Brad, you were one of the internet pioneers. You could probably answer this better than I could, but I don't believe the internet cost any money until AOL came along, did it? You just plugged your phone line in the back of your PC.
Well, I can tell you this, and this was back in early 90s. I still remember the modems and the baud rates and the bulletin board systems. And then I remember they came out with an opportunity to telenet, which basically you would dial into a specific bulletin board system that someone was offering through their phone, and you had the capability at that point then to telenet to another bulletin board system. And then, of course, the internet evolved into what it is today, because a lot of people don't realize that the internet's been around since the 50s or 60s. It was the military communications that it was their ability to communicate overseas effectively. But anyway, and then they, of course, commercialized
all that line had been laid a long time ago.
Yeah, and they commercialized it. They found a way to make money on it. But to answer your question, Michael, I actually had looked into with a guy that my mom used to work for in the stock market. We were going to, buy these servers. Now, back then, they were $50,000 servers to provide internet in Little Rock, Arkansas at the time. So, there is money that has to be spent on towers and signals and fiber optic cables now, and everything's evolved. But to me, if you can institute other programs, and I agree with Manny. I was just going on the premise of the ability for someone to have it that may not be able to, because it's expensive. I mean, I live out in rural Arkansas, and literally the only internet that we're afforded to have is satellite internet, and I'm paying roughly about $170-something a month for internet that pretty much sucks. So,
but it is a signal that's just out there.
Yeah,
it's that, and like Elon Musk is working on SpaceX's program internet that's supposed to be super fast. So why not get with guys like that? Why not get with technological geniuses and figure out, we've got all these satellites. Let's not worry about these satellites that can focus on war that we're never going to hardly ever use, or a space station that we're building for whatever reason. We have the capability to do this. And we probably have the capability up there already. It's just something that they don't want to relinquish because they can't make a profit off of it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I can agree there. I think my point on this and why I think it's not fiscally responsible is right now you're already in a deficit where our kids are going to be paying for these stimuluses. We're trillions of dollars in debt. Is right now exactly the time to start expanding social programs?
Well, we just,
Right.
I mean, we're a country that just politicized and weaponized a virus. Okay, and then we've created this environment and now to where when you people have been so spoiled by making double what they would make if they weren't working during the pandemic, that why would they want to go back and work when they can get this money? So absolutely, we don't care. I promise you, Michael, the government could care less about the debt. It's apparent by the way that they operate. You could scale back congressional salary. You could scale back senatorial salary, all of that, and fund some of these programs. But like I said, if there's not a profit to be made in Washington, they're not going to do it.
This financial system that we've set up is backed by nothing.
Very true.
So it doesn't matter how much they say we're in debt.
Touche. Well played. Okay.
I mean, they spend trillions of dollars on stimulus packages, and all you're doing there is buying votes anyway.
Very true. Very true. Okay, y'all. American Idiot of the Week. This week, my American Idiot of the Week is going to be the state of Alabama. Now, stick with me. The state of Alabama, I didn't know about this today. In the state of Alabama, if you do not pull the trigger, but you just happen to be in the same room, you can be charged with capital murder and then put to death. That is right. A man named Nathaniel Woods was executed earlier this year, and his crime was being present when 3 cops were killed during a drug raid in 2004 in his hometown, and he was executed because of it. So for that, and because this man did not pull a trigger or anything, the state of Alabama is my American Idiot of the Week. Are you fucking kidding me?
How did they find him guilty? What did they find him guilty of?
They found him guilty of
charge?
capital murder. What they presented was because Nathaniel walked back in the house when they first came in, they said he orchestrated and was the mastermind leading those gentlemen to their death. And they executed this man that never pulled a trigger or anything, but they executed him.
Manson never did the crime, but he got other people to do it. I mean,
true, but come on now. Are you kidding me? Capital murder and you never pulled a trigger. You didn't orchestrate anything. Come on now. You walked back in your house.
I'd like to look at the orchestration of it.
I'll shoot you a Hulu documentary I watched earlier on it.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, it is the state of Alabama. They've also been known to kill their sons over the Crimson Tide losing to Auburn.
Very true. Very true. We'll finish off with Manny because he always has me.
Before you go, Manny, can I say one American Idiot of the Week?
Oh, absolutely. I was going to you, bro.
Okay, so here it is. It's not political. It's not. But, I'm a big horse racing fan. So my American Idiot of the Week is the track announcer who doesn't even acknowledge Rich Strike until he is ahead of the race. This horse made the most impressive move in the stretch I've ever seen in my life, fighting through tons of traffic. Goes off at 80-1, doesn't ship out till like Friday. And this jackass doesn't even give him a call until he's leading the race at the very end.
Wow, that's unique.
Welcome to Oklahoma.
I was like, "Are you serious? You didn't even call his name?" I mean, this, and I'm telling you right now, if anybody's watching this and you look at the overhead of that race and that horse's move in the stretch, that was so super impressive. It's one of the best runs I've seen in forever.
So it's a great jockey.
Oh, Lord. Okay, Manny, your turn.
Yeah, mine isn't as like off the cuff as most of mine are. Whenever I sent you that headline about what children under the age of 9 are going through by not being able to talk about their identity, when I sent you that headline, that was my American Idiot of the Week. I mean, the people that write these headlines so that it looks like it is such a big deal to get people talking about this stuff, when in reality it is something that is so minute that it can wait another 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't get why there are certain people in this country that are so bent on corrupting the thoughts and the patterns of children.
It's sad. It really is. But that's all we got for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. For the Manny, Hispani, and Brad, we will see you guys next Monday on the American Idiot Show. Good night, everybody.
That I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their